A long time ago, maybe 20 some years ago, I was at a workshop out in Long Beach, California, which is not where I live now and was not where I lived then. In fact, then uh, I lived here in Pittsburgh. And I could probably date it. So that would be 96, 2006, 2000. So more than 20 years ago. We're getting there. This is a slow walk to the subject. More than 20 years ago, I was at a workshop in Long Beach, California, at the University of, and staying there in the dorms, eating in the cafeterias. And in the cafeteria, they would serve you your dinner, and then there was always a dessert option, piece of pie or something. But they had a freezer, and in the freezer were these popsicles, coconut, lime, uh, similar flavors. And the popsicles on the label said that they were quiescently frozen. And maybe now everybody expects their popsicles to be quiescently frozen. But at the time, I didn't know what it meant, and none of my colleagues knew what it meant. We could guess what it meant, having looked up the word quiescent in the dictionary, but I'm still not entirely sure what the process of quiescently freezing a popsicle would be, unless it means to keep it very, very still while it freezes, as opposed to maybe a freezing process where you are stirring the popsicle, the mush, as it settles. That word quiescent comes to my mind when I meditate and when I try to understand what the instruction is to leave things as they are. The word that comes forward is quiescent, that I am a mush of fruit batter or stuff or whatever it is that goes into a popsicle before it is frozen, that then is in I imagine, a rack of popsicle shaped units settled in the freezer and quiescently becoming solid, stabilizing. So let's see how far I can extend that metaphor. Maybe the freezer is the practice, my consciousness, my mind, my awareness, all of those words being used interchangeably, is the unfrozen mush, the mash. And the process of freezing is the process of stillness and acquiring equanimity. So that quiescently frozen popsicle is like my my allowed to be consciousness. What I think of when I think of this is the ongoing dialogue in my own mind as to what does it really mean to let it be, to allow things to be as they are, unmodified. Because there are some things I want to modify. Right? There's evil in the world that should be modified. The instruction is to leave things as they are. So there's obviously a disconnect here in my understanding. That I'm going to try and use that word quiescent to help clarify or to settle it down a little bit. So I think the first iteration of the idea, or the first clarification that comes to my mind as I imagine myself as a popsicle in an industrial freezer settling down, surrounded by thousands, maybe millions of other popsicle forms also quiescently settling. Letting something be and leaving it as it is are two separate things. Let's use them as two separate things. leaving it as it is would be not taking action. Letting it be as it is, letting it be, is to see it as it is. So I think the first confusion is the idea that letting it, leaving it, is a decision around the action that I'm going to take. When I think first and foremost, it is a clarification of view. To let something be is to see it as it is, prior to then leaving it as it is or not. So here's the example I wrote in my notes here. If I'm sitting and my knee hurts, that is what I recently heard a teacher call dharma pain. It's discomfort that I can sit with because it isn't going to kill me. It isn't going to break my kneecap. It might hurt, but that hurt and the suffering caused by that hurt is the practice. Physical discomfort is not the same as suffering. So I can let it be and leave it as it is, because I see it for what it is. I've talked a lot about my knee in particular because I'm convinced that my mind, when I reach a certain level of quiescence, activates a self-defense mechanism and tells me your knee is going to pop out if you don't move it right now. And this is even when I'm not in anything approximating a tight lotus. Simply be in a loose cross-legged pose, where there is categorically no physical risk to my knee. So to let it be, to leave it as it is, I have to see it for what it is. It's dharma pain, and the suffering is my mind interpreting that. As opposed to, imagine I was sitting here, and there was a knife stuck in my knee. An ice pick or something like that. The sensation might actually feel a lot like the suffering that I feel when I'm sitting there and have taken a vow not to move for the meditation practice. It certainly feels that way sometimes. But I've seen in this second case that it is actually an ice pick in my knee. And in that instance, I can let it be what it is, which is an ice pick in my fucking knee, excuse the language, and I can stand up and get to an emergency room. Because it's an ice pick in my knee. It isn't the monkey mind using the suffering interpretation of discomfort to distract me. So the instruction to let it be, I think, where I'm coming from right now, can be interpreted as to see it for what it is. When we say no modification, no manipulation to the moment, that before that refers to stretching my knee or picking up something or eating something or saying something or actually physically doing something. The first modification is that suffering mind, that interpretation of suffering. And seeing something for what it is, unmodified, unmanipulated, is first to see through that process, that dynamic, that layer of my mind that might be struggling. The ego recognizing that my stability is posing a threat, right? The ego is the stirrer in the quiescence. I have nothing against. Don't take this as me saying that we should be ego-less in all cases. There's time and place for the ego. If I'm standing in line at the cafeteria to get a quiescently frozen pop, it's okay to have a bit of an ego that decides that I want coconut over tart apple. Argue with me about that. Maybe I'm still stuck in a samsaric delusion, and that choice will hinder my enlightenment. Without doubt, it will. But you can see what I mean, right? There's the ego is a tool. That's a totally different topic from today, and a much deeper one than the idea that sitting still introduces the opportunity to view the suffering mind as simply that, simply an interpretation, and that letting go of that interpretation requires clear understanding of the situation at hand, clear noting, to use another common word, clear observation of the current condition. And then take action or not. The compassionate action, the angry action, these are all options that are present to us. And letting it be doesn't mean leaving it as it is. I'm talking about my knee, but if you're seeing a case of violence or a case where some intervention would reduce suffering, leaving it as it is doesn't mean that you sit and observe that. Leaving it as it is doesn't make you passive. It means first to disentangle that interpretation from the situation, whether that situation is phenomena in the seated sitting body. Sit. My covered with cat hair here. It's been bothering me. Don't know what I'm going to do about it. That's probably a good place to end. If any questions, drop a comment, like, subscribe, etc. The next meditation video, if this is meditation is quiescence, I have a second one coming up. Meditation is resonance. Also a musical term. So that should be coming out shortly. And for those of you who are here hoping for more Messiaen, that may be next. Although I have an idea about Marshall McLuhan that might be the next non-meditation video. So, if you have a preference or an opinion, let me know that too. In the meantime, keep your wits about you.